So, communication is something that is always changing, and with changing technology comes changing forms of communication, different channels of communication. And so, today I'm going to be discussing challenges for corporate communication in today's digital age. What we're going to start with is how old and new forms of communication differ from each other, and we're going to be comparing and contrasting them. Social media, we're going to talk about that and how it's grown as well as the technology behind it has grown, and we're going to talk about the negatives associated with that, how that's negatively affecting businesses or individuals. We're going to talk about the effects that social media has on these businesses or individuals, um, as well as ways to manage multi and social media in business so that we can use it more properly, and be able to use these things in our lives and make our lives a little bit easier instead of harder or worse. So let's jump right into it. We're going to start with the advantages of communication in the old days and the new days. So the older forms of communication, we were much less likely to be distracted at work. We would have more face-to-face, in-person conversations. Whereas today we can just easily call someone. We don't even have to be in the same room as them in order to have a full-length conversation. So, you know, advantages of being um, face-to-face in the old days were, less likely for someone just to hang up on you, or, you really get a stronger connection with the eye-to-eye connection between somebody. So that was an advantage. Um, your identity is at a much lower risk of being stolen. In the old days, like if you post stuff online today, there's a high risk of it, not a high risk necessarily, but there's a risk of it being stolen or, um, recorded by somebody that you don't want it to be. So you have to be careful of what you're sharing. So another advantage of, communication in the older days with less risk of oversharing because there was nothing really to share it to. The only sharing was, word of mouth, person to person. If you told the wrong person and they gossip, that was your risk of oversharing. But today, if you just post it online, um, anybody in the world could see that. And I don't know what I did. Way to go. All right, let's just go back. Excuse me. All right. So, like I said, easier to keep your private life private. Simple. All right. So advantages of how we communicate now would be that we can do things instantly. Like I said, it used to take forever to get communication done before, whereas now we can just call somebody or message them and they can get that instantly, and reply within seconds. So also more channels of communication have become available in today's age. So we have things like Facebook, we have email, we have texting, we have calls, we have FaceTime, we Skype, so many different ways that we can communicate with each other. So that allows for business to spread like wildfire. Like I said, like being able to communicate on all levels instantly allows for word to spread instantly all over the world without hassle at all. Very little effort required. As long as it's something that a lot of people will discuss, then it will travel. And there's also more potential for working at home in today's age because we have the internet everywhere we go, so we can work from wherever depending on our job. Um, but that's kind of more of a perk that we can have in today's age. So yeah, let's move on. So social media is growing, like I said. Facebook is the most popular social media platform among adults. Um, I believe it was about 58% of adults use Facebook, as opposed to other social media platforms. They didn't use hardly as much. They were in the more 20% for media platforms such as like LinkedIn and Twitter. Um, for global users of social media, it's grown. So in 2005, it was at 7%, and today it is at about 65% of people globally that use social media. So that's actually a pretty big number if you think about countries that don't even have internet, are affected into that, whereas 65% of the global population is still part of the social media platforms. That's pretty crazy. Another statistic would be 92% of teens report going online every single day. So obviously it's still growing, and younger generations are going to grow up using these things every single day, and so that's just going to be a part of life. So that's going to continue the growth of social media even further, even though it can obviously only grow so much, it will continue to until it can't anymore. Teens are more prone to use more than one social media platform, which is true. Adults, like I said, typically use Facebook the most and then don't really branch out to other platforms, whereas teens are more prone to use Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and Twitter and all these other things just to constantly be checking up on and having some sort of connection with someone else, whereas adults, find that they don't need that sort of gratification nearly as much. Um, Next would be negatives associated with social media in the workplace. I think we already covered a couple, but one would be that it is a big waste of time. If you're not using it properly in the workplace, it can be a huge distraction and cause you to get distracted from your work and get off topic. There is a risk of oversharing with social media. So like these are things that can hurt your interview. If you're being interviewed by a company and they want to see what you're like outside of work, they can check your social media and see like what you're posting. So if you're posting things that they don't agree with or that could make your image look bad, then they could deny you work, or they could talk to you if you're already existing in a workplace and they see that you're behaving poorly online, then they can intervene or have some sort of punishment towards that, or I'm not sure, but social media has been used for things like harassment in the workplace. So employees contacting other employees outside of work inappropriately um, obviously would not be a proper use of social media in the workplace. It is also something that is pretty inescapable, I would say, because it's constantly in your pocket, on your cell phone or on your computer. I know I have a couple bookmarks, Facebook, YouTube. On my phone, I'm constantly getting notifications, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, somebody posting something, it notifies you. Not even if, it's not somebody who you are constantly in communication with. Facebook will even be like, hey, this person hasn't posted in a while, come check it out. Even if it has no relevance to you whatsoever, it still like grabs your attention or distracts you from what you're doing, which is definitely a negative associated with it. Social media affects everyone that I know. It's constantly providing a sense of urgency to people. Like they get that buzz in their pocket, they immediately have to pull it out and look at it. Um, they rely on social media for gratification. Some people who post things are constantly wanting to be getting likes. They want people to approve of them, things like that. Like this picture shows, people get disconnected from life, from reality. They are distracted by their phone when they could be, distracted by each other. So it's something that influences us heavily. Advertisements are something that influence us on social media. A huge part of the revenue for these sites are through advertisements. They have a huge effect on people, and the people that you follow also have a huge effect on you. The posts that they post influence you substantially. So you have to be careful of who you're following. You have to know, what you believe and what others believe, and have to be able to, differ those two things, because when you start looking at media so often, you start to kind of, turn into that. Whatever you're watching, you start to kind of turn into that person, anyways. Um, Managing multi and social media, so things that we can do to use these things effectively and keep professional would just be to like kind of keep your work life and your personal life totally separate. Knowing where and when to use social media is very important. Not using it at work, not using it in a meeting, stuff like that. Whereas you could be totally fine to use it while you're at home. Monitoring your own online activity is important so that you're not oversharing or sharing inappropriate material, things that wouldn't reflect well on the company. And if you are a company, ways that you can manage these things are by setting restrictions on your servers so that your employees are unable to access sites or certain media that you wouldn't want them to be accessing while at the work. Ways that we can properly use it in business is by using social media for polls to increase your knowledge on a topic, or seeing reviews on certain things that people are saying about a company are all useful. Media can create a more appealing and a more enjoyable learning environment in the workplace. So, like, if you use training videos instead of a trainer, that can be a little more interactive and can save you some more time. Um, and it can be a little bit more fun and colorful, for an employees. A little more spice in their life, a way to make it a little more enjoyable and have the time go by quickly. Um, when using media in business, it's important to ensure that your post reflects the values of the company if you're posting online, like I said, so that um, whatever you're posting doesn't reflect on them poorly. And you also need to limit yourself on how often you get off track um, because of this media. So it's okay to, get off track sometimes and take a little break, but it's important to limit yourself and know, how often you're getting off track and um, making sure that you're staying on track. And that's it. So thank you for watching my report.